ครับ
โอเคครับพี่แฟงครับ
สวัสดีครับทุกคนวันนี้ก็เป็นปาฐกถาซีรีส์ชุดไกลกะลาครั้งที่3นะครับของสโมสรนิสิตรัฐศาสตร์จุฬาครับครั้งแรกเราก็ได้จัดไปเมื่อต้นเดือนและนี้ก็เป็นครั้งที่2ก็ผ่านไปเมื่อวานนะครับครั้งนี้เป็นครั้งที่3นะครับเมื่อวานนี้ก็จัดไปก็ได้รับความสนใจพอสมควรก็ขอขอบคุณทุกคนแล้วก็คิดว่าประเด็นที่เรากำลังจะพูดต่อไปนี้ก็เป็นประเด็นที่มีความน่าสนใจแล้วก็คิดว่าหลายๆคนในประเทศไทยก็กำลังสนใจอยู่ในที่ชุมนุมประท้วงก็มีคนเอาธงของอุยกูร์เนี่ยไปโบกสะพัดอยู่ในม็อบเหมือนกันซึ่งก็มีคนตั้งคำถามข้อสงสัยเยอะแยะไปหมดเลยว่าอุยกูร์คือใครอุยกูร์ทำไมถึงถูกจีนละเมิดสิทธิมนุษยชนและเรื่องนี้เป็นเรื่องจริงหรือเปล่าอย่างนี้มีคำถามมากมายรวมถึงหาว่าพวกเขาเป็นผู้ก่อการร้ายด้วยนะครับคำถามเหล่านี้ก็วันนี้เราได้รับเกียรติจากคุณลุยซ่ากรีฟซึ่งเป็นไดเรคเตอร์ผู้อำนวยการฝ่ายรณรงค์สากลนะครับของUyghur Human Rights Project นะครับที่จะมาพูดกับเราโอเค Let me speak English a little bit Hello I'm David President of Political Science Student Union of Chulalongkorn University warm welcome everybody to our series Beyond Borders. Throughout this year, we will invite speakers around the world, academics, scholars, politicians, campaigners, to talk about various issues that we as a global citizen have to face nowadays. We already have last day we have the second series we focus on about book Why Women Have Better Sex in Socialism, which have a lot of very lively discussion. So today we have another episode. We will focus on Uyghur situation in China and how we can help them. Today we have Louisa Grief from the Director of Global Advocacy, Uyghur Human Rights Project. I want to start the session which to Louisa very simple question that I think even simple many people might not know or might not pay attention is that who is Uyghurs and why now we see the news that people have in China repressed them so much.
Louisa, please open the microphone. Unmute the mic. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good evening to everyone in Thailand. I want to thank the students for holding this event. There's so much important action in Thailand now for human rights and democracy in Thailand. I think it's great that your student union is looking beyond borders to learn about and mobilize about human rights everywhere. So thank you all. And why, if your question is why the Uyghurs are suffering so much repression in China, we can say that the government of China considers the Uyghurs to be a threat to the Communist Party's vision, which is complete control of all people and their loyalty. Christians, Tibetans, other Buddhists, even the people in Hong Kong, the people of southern Mongolia, the Mongolian people in Mongolia, and the Uyghur people. They all have a strong identity, a strong ethnic identity. They have their own language, their own faith, their own traditions, and so they're not easily controlled. And this is why the Chinese government has announced a complete, we can say, a war on religion and a war on the Uyghurs.
Okay, so just to elaborate more, like, so in Thailand, there's like someone who has certain bias on Uyghur people, like some accused the Uyghur to be terrorists, and some even they even support the Reeducation Camp in China. That's quite awful and depressing, but it's true that even some people believe that Uyghur are terrorists. Can you elaborate more on this? Why people think Uyghurs are terrorists, even though the truth is not?
Yeah. The Chinese government does a very good public information job. We could call it propaganda. We could call it disinformation. I will just say this for people who are concerned. They saw news about some Uyghurs committing violence. My organization, I work for Uyghurs who are promoting human rights. The people say, what about violence by Uyghurs?
Yeah.
First thing is, everywhere in China, local people are very angry when the government represses their rights. A government official gets away with stealing the land, taking away people's pension, demolishing their house, raping the girls. Those government officials get away with it. The local people are so angry, they gather. Maybe they burn a police car. Maybe they stab a policeman. Okay, that happens in the Uyghur region also. It's the same. And there is a political movement for Uyghur freedom. Uyghurs want human rights. That has some groups like in Washington, D.C., the Uyghur Human Rights Project, or in Europe, the World Uyghur Congress. They're speaking up for UN action based on the UN Declaration of Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. On the basis of international human rights standards, these Uyghur groups are speaking up, and they're talking about their homeland being completely controlled by the Communist Party. That's what the Chinese government says is promoting terrorism.
Yeah, and as we heard that you have the slide about and presentation about the situation in Uyghurs, that is the main topic of today. Please like present it to us and let us know. Okay.
I'm very glad to. I will have about 20 minutes of slides and then happy to answer questions again.
Okay. All right.
Etiwit, can you see my slides very nicely now?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great. So we're talking about a human rights crisis. We say East Turkestan. I will teach or mention one word in Uyghur. If everyone can say Sharqi Turkestan, that's the local word for the homeland of the Uyghurs. So when I say East Turkestan, I'm just translating Sharqi Turkestan, which just means the Uyghur homeland. So the human rights crisis in the Uyghur homeland, such a beautiful place. I hope someday after we human rights and democracy come to the Uyghur homeland, you can visit. Famous for grapes, beautiful landscapes, wonderful culture, If I ask your students to look at this, when you look at this, do you see China? No. You see
Not really.
the Uyghurs? No. This is the Uyghurs. Of course, China is made up of many cultures, but clearly these are the Uyghur people who are Turkic. They believe in Islam for the most part. They have their own cuisine, their own beautiful environment. And you can see these 3 mosques, and busy marketplace. This would be normal life in the Uyghur homeland if you visited Kashgar or Urumqi even just 4 or 5 years ago. But all of you know that China calls it Xinjiang. Xinjiang meaning new frontier, but it is on the crossroads of the Belt and Road. And so that Xi Jinping is looking to connect China to global trade, in fact, to some say control this trade, and the Uyghur homeland is right in between it. The crackdown began when the government said, as you said, terrorism. Islamic extremism is spreading in the Uyghur region. But what we want to say is, what is extremism according to the Chinese government? Practicing normal things that every Muslim, 1 billion Muslims around the world, even international communication, sometimes watching a foreign movie. If you see a document in Uyghur or Arabic, refusing to allow government officials, or if you try to keep halal, this will be considered extremism. So if you have, everyone knows here, very normal, a prayer rug. If you have one of these pitchers for ablutions before you pray, which actually a lot of religions wash before praying, or if something just has Arabic or Uyghur. This will be considered a reason for extremism and the need for re-education. And you can see that even the physical landscape has been completely changed. This is the same mosque. It used to say, there is no God but one God. Now it says, love the party, love the motherland. And the crescent and moon have been taken away. You see the Communist Party flag is there all along, but in this case, the tower is taken away. So if the Chinese government says, oh, mosques are fine, everyone is free, have freedom of religion in China, you can see that at least we have this evidence, photographic evidence, that something is going on with the mosques. We have pictures of these police stations, securitization. I want to show you something even more crazy. These photos are taken by Chinese government officials and put on their own social media. They're showing how these officials come and visit the Uyghur family, have meals together, and even stay in their bed to watch them. And the name of this program is called Becoming Family. So the propaganda says this is about ethnic unity, but the reality is you cannot refuse these people coming into your house. It's like having a camera inside your house. These people come. But we know there's strict surveillance. So this form was found and put out in 2017. Every person has to have a government record. What is your religious faith? Do you pray? How often do you pray? Do you have any foreign contacts? And look at the technological surveillance as well. This is a back street. This is not, I don't know, busy shopping street, a place where there might be a lot of car accidents, but cameras everywhere. Here's another example. I think I'm sure some of your students, okay, we can say street corner in Washington, street corner in New York, or street corner in Bangkok has a lot of cameras, right? Sometimes it's for traffic, sometimes for safety, but this is everywhere, completely blanketing the Uyghur homeland. Xinjiang government has put in so many that it's surprising and shocking, even for people who go from some city in China to the cities in the Uyghur homeland. Here's another example of population data. This is 163 pages like this from one district in one county, Karakash County in the southern part of the Uyghur homeland. Each person and all their family members. What is their ID? What is their relation? Where do they live? And here we have reason for detention. So some government officials spent a long time filling out all this information. Here, 2017, this is a leaked Chinese government document. And you can just see on the street. What do you see here? This picture is just a normal way people might gather and do Tai Chi, except, you know, Uyghur people don't really do Tai Chi. That's Chinese. This, I mean, you tell me, what do you see here when you see these pictures?
Yeah, like great uniform and some certain kind of Chinese dance and or something. And there's some kind of media like collecting the pictures.
Yeah.
So it's just unusual. I mean, like, seriously.
Yeah, this is all what we might call loyalty display. Anytime you have let's say North Korea, Stalin's Soviet Union, Mao Zedong's China, people were forced to come out into the public square and do loyalty dances, wave the flag. Of course, you know, sometimes you might have a parade, you love your country, nothing wrong with that. But here we see a forced loyalty display, which shows you that there's complete political control. But here's the picture many people have seen. How do we have this picture? Is it fake or is it real? We believe it's real because it was posted by the government office itself. In 2017, the local government offices were posting photos to show that they were doing a good job of so-called re-education.
Yeah, it's looked like jail instead of re-education, like school is jail, obviously.
All the police, and what color are these police guys wearing?
Black, I guess.
Yeah, right? So this is a very militarized guard of so-called re-education. Then this picture, do you remember this one? This was drone footage. I'm sorry, I don't know how to show video. But if you look at each person, blindfold, sitting on the ground, a lot of them being taken to the train, that's a lot of people being rounded up, being transferred from one prison to another. So I want to show you just the English language media. Already, can you see this? In more than 2 years ago, 2018, you see that American media, and this Guardian is in England. China's secret camps are at last in the spotlight. So we're talking now 2 years ago. The media and English media was calling out the alarm. So why in 2018? So this is a report that UHRP did where there was lots of secrecy, but at the same time, some local government officials were posting those photos of their so-called re-education. But the orders in 2017 were considered secret orders to ramp up camps. And they made instructions how to maintain secrecy to prevent Uyghurs from being afraid about what was coming. A Chinese government official even said the people there are the happiest Muslims in the world. Then the UN raised the issue. What about reporting like the media I showed you, 1 million people in camps. Hu Lianhe says there is no such thing as re-education centers. But only 1 month, 2 months later, the narrative changed to this whitewashing. Instead of saying no re-education centers, they said, it's a solution to extremism. Then the next year, they said 90% have graduated. 90% have graduated. And then they started to say, these are happy dancing Uyghurs. They're extremely happy. So here's a case of the international media, very rare case. They were invited to come and film in the so-called re-education camps. So this woman is speaking in Chinese. Then CNN provided the translation. She said, the police spoke to me and said, I broke the law. And they recommended this school, so-called school. I applied to come here voluntarily. I listened many times to illegal preachers. Afterwards, some extremist thoughts appeared in my head, which broke the law. Okay, so her thoughts broke the law. What does that remind you about?
There's it's like a reason of like tyranny or dictatorship regime that has been used anywhere, even in Thailand. Just say you break the law and then you get into the Reeducation Camp, even in Thailand.
Wow.
It's like
So it breaks the
1984.
law.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's not whether you commit a crime, it's what's in your mind. Did you think the wrong thoughts? Did you have the wrong opinion? Just the wrong opinion. Never mind disturbing traffic or breaking the election rules, breaking the rules for public demonstration. No, just your own thoughts is breaking the law. And you know what that's like. This happens not only in Thailand, though, but in other countries. My organization, the Uyghur Human Rights Project, we issued a report last year, 2019, that this harassment of Uyghurs includes even Uyghur Americans. They receive phone calls from Chinese police on their phone in America to say, you better be quiet, or your families will suffer. But despite these threats, so many Uyghurs across the world still speak out by social media. This boy came to study in New York, like your students. His name is Alfred Uyghur. Then he lost touch with his parents. He doesn't know where they are. Here are some women in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Thailand, not Thailand, Turkey. Kuzat lives in America. Some of these people live in Norway, Sweden, Australia. These are pictures of Uyghur intellectuals who've disappeared. This one is a pop star. Can you see do you see the one I'm talking about? Sorry, I didn't put the picture. The guy with an earring, does he look like an Islamist extremist to you guys?
Yeah, no,
No.
absolutely not.
Okay, now I'm going to this woman. If you can see her, she was a graduate student in Turkey. This woman is a retired medical doctor. This is an imam. His son is outside. This woman is a poet. This man, where is he? Is a university president. This woman is a famous singer. You can see she's so, these two entertainers, right? They are singing. They don't even have covering. They just are part of normal creative life, intellectual life, business life. Here's a footballer. Gone. So if somebody wants to say everyone that China is afraid of is, I don't know, part of Islamist terrorism globally, I just want you to look at these people and their relatives put these pictures out for us to show. Uyghurs are speaking up all over. I didn't take a picture, but I know I've seen at least one poster in Thailand to stand up for the Uyghur people. We have an American, this woman is an Afghan American. She had a TikTok video. It's supposed to be about makeup, but actually she spoke about the Uyghurs. Do you see this picture here? These t-shirts, these are actually all my friends of mine in Washington. They stood up with their t-shirts in a NBA game. And this is a Shimusu Tomomi. Have you guys seen this anime?
Yes.
Yeah.
We saw
So
it.
this, yeah. So it's coming. If you want to translate into Thai, I think that she would be very happy to do it. So this is about my friend Mithugul Tursun. I know her personally quite well. So this is a real person, I want just to say. And you all know there is some attention now, of course, from international stars. And you know this one, Mesut Özil. Mesut Özil just came in the news because he just got dropped from the Arsenal team. There's a lot of attention in America, of course. There's a hearing. I want to show you Reeducation is chairman of the board of my organization. He's Uyghur. Actually, this is me looking down at my phone to tweet at this hearing. Here's Senator Rubio and Congressman McGovern, Republican and Democrat, working together. All the Uyghur Americans are so grateful. They brought the photos of their relatives to this big press conference last year. And of course, the Secretary of State has been speaking out. There's a law that just passed the Congress. And then right after the law, the US government imposed Magnitsky sanctions, human rights sanctions, targeted sanctions against the officials who are responsible for these human rights crises. So it's really good that the US government has acted, but also Europe is acting, right? The EU calls for access. Members of the European Parliament say China must close these re-education camps. They gave their top human rights prize to Ilham Tohti, Professor Ilham Tohti, who's serving a life sentence. And the momentum is growing. I want to show you in July last year, 22 countries signed a letter expressing concern. This year in October 6th, 39 countries expressed their grave concerns. And then there's beyond the politics. We can just look at the Olympics. All these companies are still sponsoring Beijing 2022. And we know that a few of these countries are already worried about their reputation. If there's Olympics in Beijing, where there's still what we call concentration camps, these Coca-Cola, Toyota, Visa may have damage to their reputation. So a lot of people are campaigning on this Olympic sponsors. And then the big question is forced labor. Here, I have a photo that comes from Chinese state media, and it's called female trainees. And what we know is this word is a euphemism for the people who are forced to come work in factories against their will. And these slogans are very ironic because they say peace, freedom and harmony. But we know the story is exactly the opposite. So again, American media, this is about a year ago, very mainstream, forced labor. And now this March, big report about this forced labor going for international brands, Apple, Adidas, Nike, Sony, Siemens, Dell. And some of the forced labor, this is the Fair Labor Association, a statement on forced labor risk sourcing from China. This is March of this year. We now have a whole coalition, and I believe that Humanity Across Borders is one of the signatories of this coalition to say we say no to forced labor in the apparel industry. There's a steering committee of 5 Uyghur organizations, including Uyghur Human Rights Project, but also trade unions, worker rights organizations are standing against this because so much of the world's cotton comes from the Uyghur region, 20% for the whole world. What does that mean? If you buy a t-shirt, 1 in 5 chance that this cotton comes from the Uyghur region where these concentration camps are happening. And so there are a lot of campaigning. Zara, this company, refuses to say whether they will do anything to make sure that their cotton does not come from Uyghur forced labor. So there are a lot of actions there I can show you later, petitions and so on. The US government has acted on this and seized this hair, 13 tons, that were coming to the US. All these groups are talking now about the need for states and the UN to really not to look away, but to decide, is this crimes against humanity? Is it genocide? The Canadian government just last week said the parliamentary subcommittee is persuaded that the actions of the Chinese Communist Party constitute genocide as laid out in the Genocide Convention. The UN Security Council has not acted. The International Labor Organization has not acted. The UN Working Group on Business and Human Rights has not acted. And the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, 57 countries, has not acted. So there's still a long way to go. We'd like to say something also to you all about you in your neighboring countries there near Thailand. There is a refugee crisis. The Chinese government, if your passport expires and you're living in Turkey or Cambodia or Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the government says, oh, you have to come back to Beijing or back to your own home county to renew your passport. But they're afraid to do that because the government only gives you a temporary one-way pass back, and you will be considered an extremist for having lived abroad. So we are looking for help on a humanitarian basis. If any groups in Thailand, as students want to help, we could raise money for humanitarian assistance to refugees who are so poor, refugees, families with children in Thailand and in Turkey and other countries, and also asylum. We are asking actually many governments to give money. They help the Rohingya as they should, 951 million from the US alone, but so far no money for the Uyghur refugees. We are saving them, and we have to say the US government gave a visa to this camp survivor. She spent 9 months in the camp, and she has terrible, terrible stories to tell of her torture and everything else she suffered. So my organization is helping her to settle in the United States. And we also have action. I want to show you something from Malaysia. Vafik is a women's NGO, and I'm almost at the end, so we'll be able to talk. They're now talking about the untold stories from our Uyghur sisters. This just happened last month, just like today's webinar. It was very, very, I myself cried when our local host, Dr. Hazlin Chong, spoke with 3 Uyghur women who just told their personal stories, who lost touch with their parents. They're in such stress, they say, I cannot be a good mother. I'm so distracted. My own children feel the stress here in Australia, here in Turkey. So that's the end of my slideshow, and I welcome your questions and discussion.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Is very brief and very useful and give us a broad information about the situation that Uyghurs are facing. And yeah, Yeah, we just want to know more about your organization, Uyghur Human Rights Project. What are you guys doing, and how can we contribute as a Thai people contribute
Oh,
to your
thank you
project?
so much for asking. Absolutely, we do reporting. So if you'd like to follow and see these new reports, you can go to our website. You can sign up for our mailing list, and you can follow us on Facebook. Absolutely, I should get that link for you. So one is we're doing documentation. What can we talk to survivors of the camps? Can we talk to Uyghurs in Australia, in Turkey, in Norway, Sweden, every place? What is really happening? Is it true that your relatives are taken away? And I hope that by showing these voices over and over again, we can overcome some people who are skeptical, right? They're not sure whether to believe it's really happening, or they wonder, is the Chinese government correct that all of those people in re-education are somehow dangerous, violent people? In addition, we are taking responsibility for helping this camp survivor. Her name is Tursanay Ziawuddin. She has actually very serious medical conditions, and she needs doctor treatment. And we have helped her she was in danger because she was in danger of being deported to China. And she would certainly have gone straight back into detention, probably would not survive. So if people want to help, you can go to our website and spread information about her story. We can also accept small donations in our GoFundMe to help pay for her care.
All right. So, as the U.S. election is coming soon, like in the next few days, and yeah, even I have just two questions to ask. One is, there is like a discourse that that the Uyghur issues are U.S. supported. I mean, like the attention that Uyghurs got are U.S. supported, and then it's just manipulated by the U.S. And yeah, there's nothing really happened. And what do you think about this? And second, how will the upcoming U.S. election affect the situation that Uyghurs are facing? Trump and and yeah, so on, and Biden. Okay.
Yes. Both Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden have very strong positions to hold the Chinese government accountable and to help the Uyghurs. Now, in the case of Mr. Trump, it's more actions than words. He, in fact, at one point, it was very shocking. It was reported that he told a reporter, actually, that he decided to hold back these human rights sanctions because of a trade deal. And he was reported to say that he agreed with this re-education, supposedly. We don't have complete confirmation, but it seems possible, which was very shocking. But Mr. Trump sometimes, I know, he just agrees with whoever he's talking to, perhaps. But regardless of what he said, the government, the State Department and the Treasury Department and the Commerce Department and Customs have actually taken a lot of action to impose sanctions on the perpetrators, to seize these forced labor goods, because it's illegal under American law to import anything made by prison labor or bonded labor, child labor, or forced labor. So this really sends a big signal to American businesses. You can't just profit from forced labor. You can't ignore what's happening. It's been in the news the media have carefully documented it for more than 2 years. You cannot continue business as usual. And now, it's not just the US, is my point. The UK Parliament in London has had 2 parliamentary inquiries just going on right now. The next one you can tune in and watch live if you want. November 5th is the first oral hearing in the British Parliament about the atrocities. And definitely MPs in Germany and civil society groups, leaders in Ireland and France have at least spoken, but they actually haven't taken any actions. No sanctions, no warnings to the businesses, no seizing of these goods that are coming from forced labor to end business as usual, and definitely no resolutions at the UN. So it would be much better if we had many governments around the world, not only issuing statements. Like I said, 39 already agreed to express their concern, but it would be much better for there to be action to at least stop the companies from making a profit from this forced labor. And again, Biden, basically I want to tell you it's Biden and Trump are both in agreement that the Uyghur crisis is real and that something should be done about it. So it's not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue.
And I just want to know about like they believe that even like some human rights organization and so on that US supported, and and even some right-wing Thais, they think that they are just being imperialist, or even like the Uyghur issues are like just being reproduced for a certain reason for America. What do you think about it?
Well, I would say if you don't think that, what can I say? It's really sad.
Yeah.
Just because, I've worked on human rights for my whole, since I was a student. When I was a student in New York State, I signed a lot of petitions for human rights in Latin America, Honduras. I don't remember exactly all the other ones. And then also I know China. I live in China. In fact, I am myself part Chinese. I don't know if any of your listeners can speak a little bit of Chinese in Cantonese. My own grandma is Cantonese. Sorry, I don't have, so some people in Thailand might know these languages. So I know for sure that what's happening is real, and I think it's terrible that if the US government does something good for once, then people reject it. It's illogical.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on this, and it's just nonsense to not believe that this issue is real and people are facing like terror and that it damage their life, violates their human rights, and that people just think it's fake, it's just Western agenda and so on.
Would you like to bring some guests who are Uyghur? I mean, I'm not Uyghur, right? I'm an American with some part Chinese. If you bring these women and men they can say what's happening. One woman just learned from the UN, not America. She lives in Australia, nothing to do with America. My good friend Fatima, terrible agony and sorrow, because for 2 years she doesn't know where her father is. Finally, she filed a request to the UN Working Group on Enforced Disappearances, and then she heard her father had died. She didn't know, even though her mother is still living and is in homeland, she couldn't get any confirmation because the government secretly took him away. Nobody told her family where he was. He was, so she can tell her story. She's willing to speak openly, even though there's a threat to her family. And we can bring some guests for you from, no Americans, okay? Only from Canada, Norway,
Yeah.
People living there, and then let your guests talk to them and ask them, is this your real story, or are you lying about your family disappearing, and so on. So we can
Yeah.
bring them so they can speak directly and let people judge for themselves. Is this a real story or not?
Yeah. So
Let's do that
this
next.
message, yeah,
Yeah,
this
so
message to those who are not, who don't believe in the story, you know. Yeah. So, Nativit, do you have any more
I
question?
very unbelievable story, and yeah, very sad. So as you working on documenting and maybe how to educate people in US and around the world, have you have you talked to Chinese students who studying in US, and if they know what happening in China, and what the response to you? I wonder this.
Yeah. Me too.
Good question. I think definitely they're influenced, of course, by Chinese language media, like social media, right? If you come to, I'm sure everyone knows this, nowadays, when you go to another country to study, you can still bring your old home with you because you still get your old news, right? And so especially for people who come from China, they still have WeChat, Alipay. They're still influenced by those media, and that media is very biased. Also, they're afraid. So two things: they have the influence from Chinese language media. Secondly, they've trained themselves, don't speak up because you might get a threat to your family member at home. But some people are very brave and speak up. Also, Uyghurs have the same fear. If I speak up, what will happen to my family? If they're in the camp, will they be killed? If they're not in a camp, they will go in the camp. But they have to speak. Some of them they feel so guilty. You can imagine in their mind, should I say something or not? If I speak, will I cause my own sister to be tortured, sexual abuse, death? But then they have to, one person said, the couple, the husband and wife, they said, we talked about it. We feel afraid to speak up, but because we know the threat against our family, but we decided to put the fate of our family in the hands of God. So they made the decision to speak because it's so desperate. And I think for a lot of Chinese students, even if they know, they're too afraid to say anything. That's the kind of control that the Communist Party has over any Chinese person, no matter where they are. They're under control.
And just, it costs a lot for Uyghurs to speak out, and I think for us, like, as just live happily, like for Thais, we should stand together with Uyghurs and speak out for them too.
Oh.
All right.
That is really very inspiring. I want to say, how do you two have so much room in your heart to be able to pay attention to, let's say, Uyghurs who are so far away? They're from Bangkok. You go to a little bit, maybe a little Laos, and then Tibet, and then the Uyghur land. It's pretty far away, almost to Mongolia, right? But you're so busy with every democracy issue in Thailand. How do you have room in your heart for the Uyghurs?
Yeah, Native answered.
I think that the injustice, injustice everywhere, anywhere is the treating to ours. And I think democracy, if we can live, we want to live in democracy. We have to have empathy and helping others. It's the value as the virtues of a citizen in democracy. So we have to help people everywhere. And I think Uyghur is a very urgent issue, and as we see evidence more and more, we can't avoid this. We have to unite and help each other.
Thank you.
It's global issue for me, and the threat of China and Chinese one China policy is everywhere. I mean, in East Asia, and Taiwan, Hong Kong, and even Thailand got some influence, and like we are affected too. And of
Yes.
course, we need to have empathy for our friend, our global friend. Sorry, and I just live in cafe, so there's quite some sound. Yeah, and of course we need to like act globally for me.
That's very inspiring. I just put in the chat something else where my organization is a Uyghur organization, but we also had to stand up for the Southern Mongolians. I'm sure every student, all the students in Thailand were so concerned when you saw that these high school students, junior middle school students in Inner Mongolia stood up when the Chinese government tried to completely eliminate Mongolian language from their schools. Right? That was a little bit of news about it. Then, of course, the government completely cracked down, arrested thousands of these young people, just like in Hong Kong, just like in Thailand, young people taken away by the police. And of course, we have to stand in solidarity. And I just put a link to one of our statements about that, but it's very inspiring.
So I think we're gonna move on to a Q&A session for our audience from home. So ถ้าใครมีคำถามก็สามารถถามในช่องคอมเมนต์ได้เลยนะครับ If anyone has questions, you can type in the comment section on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, any platform. And so I think we have our first question. Okay. I was wondering about forced labors in Xinjiang region. Many big clothing corporations are accused of buying cotton from Xinjiang, but forced labors is happening. Could you please elaborate on that?
Thank you, Jirapraya. Good question. I think we're just going to drop the link for a global campaign, not an American campaign. I wish I could show you more slides, but even the Chinese government had a lot of government program to send mostly young or middle-aged teenagers or farmers. The government says these people are surplus labor, rural surplus labor, the technical term, meaning they just live at home and have their own businesses. They have an orchard, they do some farming, they might do trading or own their own local shop or some kind of local business, either in a rural area or in a town or village, town, or city. And these people are, the government knocks on the door and says, you must work now, even mothers of young children. Oh, the government says, we're creating this kindergarten, the nursery, and therefore the mother can work and be productive. Then also the people who are already in re-education camps were taken into these factories, and mostly it is garments, gloves, garments, some electronics, and definitely right? China is the workshop of the world. If you go into what place, Carrefour or any Thai supermarket, either the food or the plastic shoes or bags or anything, where does it come from?
Okay, so
where was it made? It was made in China, and so there's always this danger that the forced labor. So if you're interested, you can go to that website, and also there's related actions. You can do it in Thailand. I mean, I'll show you even the specific. It's a lot. Some of it is digital, and so to have more voices from Thailand and everywhere, all your friends, actually makes a difference. Again, to show it's not only a few people in London or New York who care, but really it's global.
Okay. Okay, so we have some more questions.
Could I ask one question? Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. is there any suggestion for foreigners to help those who are struggling in the camp and all those families and friends who are always monitored by the central government?
Yeah.
I wondered too.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for asking this question. Definitely, you can organize your friends to sign these global petitions. So there's one petition I'm kind of surprised. It only has about 40,000 signatures, even though it's been up for a long time. Where is that petition? I can't find it. I'll send it to you in a minute. And I have to say, just putting your name there or your nickname really helps you feel, okay, I'm part of the solution. I'm not helpless. Secondly, you can organize a little bit of fundraising, even just a small amount. It means so much because of solidarity. And thirdly, I would say follow the Uyghurs on social media. So I'm going to give you the hashtag, a really good hashtag. You can say, Here Uyghurs. If you follow Here Uyghurs, it's mostly used by Uyghurs themselves. And then if you follow them on social media, you'll be able to hear, what they have to say and really know what's happening globally, even if the local media doesn't cover it, right? There's not much. How much is their coverage in your media in Thailand, either Thai or English?
In Thai, I think only BBC Thai does it like in depth, but we have a regular report, but the perception of many Thais about Uyghur is quite negative.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately.
So I would say if you want to hear directly from these relatives that our friend mentioned, use this hashtag. A lot of them use Twitter. They do use some Facebook and some Instagram. There's a really good on Instagram. I would recommend Harem Network. Just even the beautiful culture. I'll try to find that actual link for you. Harem, Instagram. So I would say to in your own social media feed, if you just show Uyghur culture, you don't have to talk about politics. If you want to, great. Let's thank goodness hooray for the Canadian government subcommittee making a finding of genocide. But if you feel like that's too political, it's actually good to just do some cultural things, and that will help Thais maybe change their image of who the Uyghurs are, because it shows their culture like normal people. So for example, this one is, I'm going to start listing them. So that's what I would recommend as an individual. Just follow 3-4 Uyghurs if you like their posts on Instagram. What do you guys, which is more popular for students, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook?
I think Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. So Instagram and Twitter, I gave you one link, and I'm just trying to think of another one that it's super good. Well, you can find it yourself, right? Follow me on Instagram and see who I follow, and just follow the cultural ones. Nothing more. And start there. Is that a good idea, you guys? Do you think a lot of students would prefer to follow culture?
Absolutely. Because
you're not committing yourself on the politics. You're just, right? It's just, and the pictures are better too. Oh, I know. Okay. Uyghur Collective. That's the one. I'm going to give you the link to that. Totally focuses on culture, history. It's not so political. So I think a lot of you would enjoy that, and you can learn something. And then when your friends say, "Oh, the Uyghurs weren't they involved in this bombing, or they're extremist, they're dangerous people," you can say, "Hey, let me show you something." You can take your phone and show the picture of this, mom cooking Uyghur food.
Have like a question. It is possible to stop the central government, which is destroying the culture and the tradition, as we have seen that many mosques in Urumqi, I think, were affected.
Yes, Urumqi. Your Uyghur is perfect. How did you learn it so well?
I learned from Nativit.
That's very great and respectful. So the city of Kashgar is another one. We have I wish I could post photos directly, but if you click into this link about Kashgar, you'll see a report that we did that has some very moving photos. And then we also did a report already a year ago, exactly 1 year ago, about the destruction of mosques. Question is, what can you do? As we know, the Chinese government is completely rejecting any criticism. I happen to know the Chinese government released a few people from camps because of publicity or because of some diplomatic inquiries, but then they didn't release the other people. And the propaganda still says the Chinese government is carrying out ethnic unity. So I don't have a lot of hope, but to stop the destruction. Some of these mosques are 800 years old. What's the oldest temple that you know of in Thailand that's still there? Probably 1,000 years old? How old is the oldest temple, like Buddhist temple in Thailand?
I think seven or 800.
Exactly the same. So just the same as that temple, some of these mosques are still lasting all that time, right? There were some mosques even before that, but they got destroyed. So I would say if you want to help Uyghurs who want to pray, who exercise their freedom of religion, you can donate to some refugee relief work. So my organization, UHRP, is doing it, and we are helping some people in Thailand who need this help and who do have freedom to worship. In other words, you can't help Uyghurs in China unless you do political action, so it's better to help the people outside. There's also a group in Turkey called Blue Crescent, which is doing refugee relief. And I'm sorry I don't have the link for you. I don't know how easily it is for them to receive. But if you speak Turkish, if you have anyone who can speak Turkish, you can look up this Blue Crescent Humanitarian Relief Organization. And there's also a foundation in Australia. So it's called the Shukr Foundation. They're doing amazing work to help the Uyghurs who are in Turkey. And so you can help them.
All right. I think this will be the last question if anyone would like to have some inquiries. Okay. All right. I think we don't have any more questions from our audience, and so I would like to thank you so much for this presentation and speech, and it's very insightful about Uyghurs. I personally read some articles that like the media has produced and summarized, but listening to your talk today, it gives me like a broad and various aspects about the situation in Xinjiang, and I hope I can contribute more to this issue. And also like as you know, there's like a movement called Multi Alliance in Twitter, and I think we have more ways to contribute to that. And Nativit shows the book, the sufferings of the Uyghurs under communist regime. He published that and translated it.
It has been it has been very popular. I think a lot of young people buy these books. You know, first when I published it 2 years ago, it's not it can't sell very well, but now it's I sold it quickly. So
I can't believe I forgot to put the picture in my own PowerPoint. That's crazy of me. You know, you guys, if you don't know this, Netiwit did an amazing job to select some writing and from different languages, get it into Thai and put it together. I mean, hats off. We really admire what you did with that. And yeah, I recommend the book. My name is in it too. So we worked on it together.
Yeah.
I wrote the preface or the introduction.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for today. And yeah, it's great to have you today for this session. And our series Beyond Boundaries will continue to invite more speakers around the world to discuss on global issues, and stay tuned, everybody. Okay, Nitwit, do you have something to say?
Yeah, next episodes, Luisa know him very well. We will have Ian Johnson. He will speak about religions in China. Yeah, we will focus more in next week, and I hope that maybe we can cooperate to have Uyghurs to talk with us as Luisa suggested. So thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.